Hi guys, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host Indira, and today I'm here with Olivia Mason. She's an athlete, model, and someone with a strong social media presence. She's also an amazing person who shows a lot of resilience, courage, and determination. As a junior, Olivia was one of Great Britain's most promising runners, as the fastest 15-year-old in Europe at her time, and having taken loads of national titles, it was all success and glory for her. However, she encountered some issues with female health-related challenges, and this took her on a journey which she's still going on. In this episode, she shares her journey so far and what she's learnt along the way. Liv has a great mindset and something that everyone can probably learn from. Okay, as always, if you've been enjoying the show, please be sure to give it a rating, as it helps give credibility to the podcast so I can keep bringing you guys the guests you want to hear from. Okay, let's get into the episode. Hi, Liv. How are you? And welcome to the podcast.
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's good.
no, it's really exciting to have you on for sure. And where are you at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm actually in South Africa. I fly home tomorrow, and I've heard there's a storm in the UK, so I'm a bit anxious about coming back, but it'd be nice to see family, get in the Christmas vibe of things. So yeah, I'm in South Africa.
No, that sounds really cool. And yeah, I can confirm. And yeah, apologies to anyone if you can hear any background noise. It is horrific weather-wise in the UK at the moment. But no, that sounds really cool. And have you been having a solid block of training out there or?
Yeah, so I was injured during the summer, which was a bit of a pain. But I've been doing kind of it's consistent training, I'd say, for the last 6 weeks or so now. So I was in Font Remo for 3 weeks. We came back for two and then out here for three again. So I'm hoping I'm getting fitter. It's just with the girls that I'm training with, it's very, like there's no hiding because they're all so quick. So I'm just kind of like trying to tell myself that I'm like, remember, Olivia, who you are training with. Like, so, but yeah, it's fairly consistent, so that's good.
That's great to hear. And yeah, it's always tough when things set you back, especially running wise. But yeah, I think when you're running with a group of Olympians, I think it'd be you got to cut yourself a
Yeah.
tiny bit of slack if you're, maybe
Yeah.
a tad behind in some reps and stuff. But
Yeah.
no, and I know that, your last race was sort of March 2024. So you've kind of had a bit of time off. Um,
Yeah.
have you got
Unfortunately, yeah. So basically, um, had a really consistent winter, kind of made Eurocross, was training really well, went to South Africa in January, training really well. Then when I came back that February, March, I just had um a kind of like it's what's called a hormone surge. So basically, I think my natural hormones kind of came through and I was just in a bit of a mess. But anyway, then I ended up training in South Africa again through my camp in April, thinking, oh, it's fine, like gonna have a good summer. I've got a good winter behind me. And then I ended up with a grade 1 stress response in my shin. And it just kind of, I mean, anyone will know who has had shin issues. It's hard to get rid of. It becomes a bit chronic. So I had the time off that I was told to have, and it just kept coming back. So I ended up just scrapping my summer. I had a great summer though, did lots of great things. Went on some great trips. And yeah, ended up scrapping my summer. And so now I'm, crawling my way back to fitness, which is annoying, but it's part of the journey. And now as well, I've got like orthotics now. I've got loads of things in place that, it's a whole learning process. So I'm hopefully no more shin problems. Touch wood.
Yeah, I have heard shin stuff can be a little bit laggy in terms of being hard to get rid of, but it seems like you've got a great attitude and it's great that you're still able to capitalize on your summer and get some good stuff out of that. And yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully there'll be some exciting stuff to come moving forwards. And so
hopefully.
let's kind of peel things back to the start. You've got quite an interesting, more unique, and very inspiring story. So, can you firstly introduce yourself as an athlete and kind of what running means to you.
Yeah, so well, I'm Olivia Mason, but get called Liv, I guess. We were having this conversation before we started the podcast. Um, but yeah, I have been running since a very young age. My mum was an athlete. She ran 202 for 800 meters. And she kind of didn't really want me to get into the sport too early because she knew I was going to be pretty good at it, and she was aware of like the sport's not easy. But my friends were doing it and I just, got into it. And then very quickly, I think I won my first national title when I was like 13. And then yeah, running was just really easy for me and I loved it. And when you're good at something as a child, you just want to keep doing it. And so that kind of carried me through. And yeah, so basically running's been such a big part of my life since forever, really. And I don't think it will ever not be part of my life because whether that's like through my friends, through my family, there's so many, links to it. But I am very big on, I am way more than just an athlete because I think it's very easy to get tuned in on that. And life is about balance. Like obviously at times, like you will tilt the balance slightly different ways. And like I will definitely running is one of my biggest priorities. But yeah, like there's way more to me than just an athlete. So I'm very, yeah, very big on that.
No, that's great. And yeah, that's so great to hear. And I think balance is something that comes up time and time again, be that running, be that anything. It is just so important. And it's great that you kind of hold that in your mind. And yeah, I mean, you had a phenomenal kind of start at running in terms of success. And yeah, I can only imagine that that does create quite a unique experience and a lot of sort of psychological maybe challenges moving forwards.
Yeah, I think like for me, because running was very easy for me when I was
Mm.
like pre-puberty, yeah, like I turned up to races and everything just felt like just so easy. And then as things started to change for me, like when I was like 15, 16, because I never had to try that hard and, you know, or have all this thing, suddenly I was stressing about what times I was running and training. I was stressing about um just like things that I had never stressed about before. And then you start to put more and more pressure on yourself because winning had kind of become second nature and it was almost like there was no other option. So yeah, so that was definitely hard mentally. But I think like going through adversity has definitely made me a stronger person. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It takes challenges to build yourself up kind of character wise. And yeah, I mean you've gone on to do a lot of great things. You've made
Thank
yourself
you.
kind of an influencer type in the running world. You've got a successful modeling career, successful athlete yourself still, you're kind of self yeah, getting yourself where you want to go, which is really admirable, really. And yeah, so to kind of fill in some people who maybe don't quite know who you are or weren't aware of what your early years were like, let's kind of build that picture for them. So, you say you got your first national title around sort of 13. And yeah, I mean, you've probably had about, at least five or so going through the years. You said it was easy. Talk us through kind of maybe, your approach to training in your junior years and maybe the most significant races to you at the time.
Yeah, so I guess like I started running at a local fell running club when I was like 8, 9, but it was like once a week. It was I wasn't really training. It was very chilled. And then I think when I was under 11s, so that is really young still, but under 11s, I started to do a few track races and I loved it. And I started asking to compete and I started to understand about, I knew my mum was a runner and I started to understand that, okay, if I do a bit of running, I could run really, really quick. So, my dad would take me to the track maybe once a week and we do a couple of 200s. And then it kind of just built from there, really. My dad was also an athlete. No offense, dad, but he wasn't as good as my mum. He was like an okay club runner and there wasn't loads of coaches near where I live. And also I think because my parents were very switched on with the fact they didn't want me to overtrain at all. They just wanted me to enjoy it. Um, so they kind of yeah, took it on themselves a little bit to help me because they just didn't want me to do the wrong things, get injured or, burn out kind of. So yeah, built from there and then I started training, kind of 3 times a week when I was like 13. And yeah, then as I started winning, it just kind of progressed and progressed. So I was doing national cross country, and then yeah, and then I'd go onto the track and I'd do English skills and things like that. Um, and then I guess for me, my biggest thing that I've done is probably represent Great Britain, but for me, I'm not really like I guess no athlete is ever content. So I'm
Mm.
hoping there's a lot more. Um, but that's probably like the biggest thing that I've done is just represent Great Britain over cross country. Um, and yeah, I guess like in terms of training, I started training properly, I would say post puberty, because pre 15, I didn't have to train that hard, if I'm being completely honest. So I think I went to the Commonwealth Youth Games when I was 15 and I
Yeah.
ran 4:20. And I think at the time I was maybe like the fastest 15-year-old in Europe. And then very quickly after that, it just went all downhill for me, which is like really sad, like for me to say it like that. But I became anemic. I became, my body just wasn't responding to training in the same way. Like it was almost like the harder I tried, the worse it got. So then mentally, well, on the mental side of things, that also just went, and I just stopped enjoying the sport. So then kind of from the age of 15 to I would say still now, I go, running has become hard. So, but I guess running is hard at the end of the day. Like it's not an easy sport. So it shouldn't have been that easy. But yeah, I would say, yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell, I would say.
Yeah, and I
Not deep
mean,
diving into any of the problems yet, but yeah.
yeah, no, we'll get on to all of those for sure. And yeah, I think it is really key that you do mention kind of puberty being that switch point. And I think, whilst not everyone necessarily found it as easy or had those levels of extreme success, it often is a trigger point for kind of things to take a downward spiral, for things to plateau, for things to start becoming harder for a lot of
Yeah.
people. And yeah, I mean, coming from so much success, being the center of attention, finding it easy, competing on the world stage, having a lot of attention on you to suddenly having this must have been
Yeah.
really challenging.
I think it was just like it very much felt like from one extreme to another. And I remember actually being in the Bahamas for the Commonwealth Youth Games, and I was like, what is wrong with me? I knew there was something wrong with me. And obviously, like looking back now, I can identify what I would have done differently, but nobody really knew because I guess like women's health and like women in sport and stuff, it's only just properly being discussed, in my opinion. And I think it's like a whole like there's a whole new level of research that we can do into it to prevent kind of what happened to me and so many other girls because there are so many girls that drop out of the sport between the ages of I would say like 14 and 17. And to me, like what I think is crazy is like you've got to think how well British British girls athletics is doing. But imagine if we didn't have all those people that dropped out, like how well it could do even better because we've just got more people involved in the sport. And like statistically, that would mean it could progress even more. So I think that, yeah, like hopefully in the next 10 years, there'll be more things in place to kind of stop that happening because ultimately it's a bit shit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Your honesty is refreshing and very much needed. And it is so true. There's a wealth and depth of talent and success in the junior years. Great Britain performed very, very well, but so many people are lost. And it is a real shame and it is a real waste of talent. And, it's crushing for the individuals who it happens to. And
Yeah,
so for you, the last race you have before kind of you took a two-year break was March 2020, March 20,
yeah,
yeah, March 2020, English schools. You did win that race, but you say that it was even back in the Bahamas when you were competing at the Youth Commonwealth Games, which was actually a couple of years before that you started to
Mhm.
feel like something was wrong. So can you talk
Yeah.
us through maybe from the Bahamas, or if there was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
point before that things went wrong, and what happened?
So basically, it was so it was when I was 15, I started my period. I was like 15 and a half, and I think that cross country season, I think I won quite a few cross countries and then went onto the track, ran 420. And then as the season went on, something changed and it was like I was running with dead legs. And when I was in the Bahamas, one of the other coaches came up to my dad and said, I think she's anemic. So that's the first thing that happened to me. I ended up with anemia, which my levels were really, really low. And that obviously affected my performance. So obviously I went on the tablets. I probably should have got an iron infusion, but I think when you go through the GP, they don't really look at things from an athletics perspective. They look at things from a general health perspective. So I was on these ferrous sulfate tablets, which I still take now. I feel like most athletes take them. Um, but yeah, and so when that was sorted, I started to run a little bit better. But I think then the mental side started to creep into it. So when the next season came, I was running on the track. I was just not running anywhere near what I had the previous year, and running was really, really hard. So I was dropping out of sessions all the time. I was, you know, just mentally having this battle with athletics. Like, did I want to do it? Did I not want to do it? Like, I want to be a runner. This is my dream, but it's suddenly really, really hard and things aren't going my way for the first time. So that kind of started happening. And then kind of started to lean more to cross country because mentally I did find that easier because that wasn't the timed aspect to it. And so I think, yeah, I made GB teams in like 2019, and that's when I started to get consistent with training again. Um, Kind of after that really tough 2018 period of mentally struggling with the sport. Um, and then kind of it was COVID. And then so I won English schools, yeah, in 2019. I won the English schools cross and I was training good. Like I wasn't running bad at all. But when as a athlete, you know your body, and my parents also knew there was something not quite right with her. Um, Obviously I just kept trying, I kept trying, and it wasn't really until last year a couple of things kind of came to the surface that, you know, I I'm not quite I would say using the word not quite normal is not quite right to say, but I have hypermobility, which is one of the things which affects me. So basically I'm very on the extreme disorder of hypermobility, which comes with a lot of other symptoms, like ADHD, like anxiety and things like that. So when the sport started going bad, those other things started to affect my running. And then also, um, I just struggle, and I'm still on this journey of trying to figure out how I can help it, but I struggle with my hormones essentially. So that last race in 2020, I obviously we had COVID, but I'd also like just gone on the pill for the first time. And I had a boyfriend at the time, and I kind of had started to figure out with my mum that probably some of the things that were wrong with me were probably hormonal, because when you look at everything, you like look at the, when I was 15 in the Bahamas, that's kind of where it all started with the periods and stuff. So we thought, well, maybe the pill will help. I wish I never ever went on the pill, because I honestly just think it's not supposed to be in your body. And I think as someone that is hormone sensitive, I'd rather I'd rather balance everything naturally. So that I think that's one of the things that if I could look back, I wouldn't do. Because I also think as an athlete, it's such a good measure to be able to see if you're having your period. And that's coming from someone who's always been a healthy weight. I've never struggled with reds or anything like that. But I just think it is also good for to show that you're healthy in other ways. So like that your hormones are healthy, not in an energy deficient way, but also like in a kind of everything's functioning the way that it's supposed to, because that's when your energy is going to be good. That's when you're going to be feeling the best. That's when you're going to get the most return from your training. Because if your hormones are balanced, you're functioning really at a better level. But yeah, gosh, I am rambling a bit. Sorry, guys, it's a long story. Um, and then yeah, so that was 2020. I went on that pill. At the end of 2020, I came off that pill. And I didn't race because it was all a bit all over the place. I had a bit of a niggle. There was not many races in COVID, and I just kind of didn't do anything. Then in January 2021, after being off of the pill for, I'm going to say 4 weeks, I came home from university, kind of like mid-January, end of January, and I, got on the scales in my bathroom. Like I don't weigh myself a lot, but I got on the scales in my bathroom, and I had gone from 50 kilograms to 58 kilograms. And I was like, what on earth is going on? And I immediately ran down to my mum in floods of tears, being like, Mum, I'm fat. I was being really horrible, speaking really horribly to myself because obviously as a girl, body image is also a big thing. And so I was absolutely mortified and I just felt awful. And she was like, something's not right. So I rang the GP because it was still COVID times. And I said, this has happened to me. I've come off the pill. I've put on 8 kilograms. I said, I kind of realized my hair was falling out. I had spots for the first time in my life, really. And I was feeling really down. Um, Although surprisingly running quite well at that in that January period, which was kind of crazy. I was like, how am I 8 kilograms heavier? But it just shows you that not always um, lighter is faster because I was actually running well. Um, but yeah, so then and the GP honestly said to me, um, this is just the way it is for girls. Because at the time, when I rang them, I'd also been in bed bound with this most horrific period pain. And because I had got the period and I thought, something's not right. So I rang them and they said, this is just the way it is for girls. You're balancing out. And I was like, I'm gonna struggle to accept that because this just is like horrible. I was like, surely this is not the way it is for girls. Like, I'm not gonna live my life like this. So then anyway, I think maybe 2 weeks or so after that phone call with the GP, I got injured and I ended up having to go for an MRI scan after trying to like get rid of this injury. Um, I couldn't get rid of it. I was like, there's something not quite right. And went for this MRI scan and I ended up with two stress fractures, one in my sacrum and one in my femur. So I was obviously like, oh my gosh, like how on earth have I gained weight and I've got two stress fractures? Because in my head, I was just thinking stress fractures mean you haven't eaten enough, but I've gained weight. So what on earth is happening to my body? Um, so that was really horrible. I ended up getting um referred to a gynecologist who, sent me for some scans and things like that. And I had polycystic ovaries. So basically, I had been suffering with post-pill polycystic ovarian syndrome. So that's why everything was so bad. At that point, what the advice that I got given was to go on another pill. So I went on another pill. It was called Zoli, and it is recommended to a lot of athletes. It's got bioidentical, I think it's called estrogen. So it's like the closest thing to real estrogen that you're going to get. And it protects your bones. So basically, it is probably one of the better hormonal pills. Um, if I was to do it again, I would have never gone on any pills, like I said earlier. So, but and yeah, So then I went on that pill, and I had been on that pill since so it was 2021, 2022, 2023, and I came off it in June 2024 this year. And I was okay on that pill, but since coming off of it, I have no anxiety. I well, that's the main thing. I have no anxiety, which is a great thing, and I think that'll really benefit my running performance, because I think that is one of the things that I've struggled with, and it's held me back, is like I can, keep up with all these amazing athletes in training, and then when it goes to the track, I struggle um in races. So I think that'll be a big game changer for me. But yeah, so kind of got that post-pill PCOS diagnosis and was on the pill, and then I've come off this year. And now I'm trying to balance my natural hormones. So I think I'm doing pretty good with it. Like, it's not perfect. I think at some point I will, I'll do a bit of an Instagram post about it, and I'll explain more things that have been going on. But for now, I'm still very much figuring it out. Um, but I feel like it's it's going in the right direction. Like, I feel good. I'm happy. I'm getting fit again. And so I'm hoping the next year and years to come, it's going to go to another level. But that's kind of the problems in a nutshell, like, without rambling too much.
Yeah, gosh, wow. No, that's a lot. I mean, and it also just highlights how complicated these things are. And yeah, and it must have been a lot kind of mentally as well, just going through the process of getting these diagnoses, getting these
Yeah.
appointments, getting these scans. Like that's a lot to deal with, especially when there's no answers. And
I
do
think
you,
for me, it's just like, um, I feel like I've been battling my body since I was 15, and it's really, really hard. And I mean, this is no way saying that males have it easy, because they have a whole host of problems too. But I truly, truly think that these problems that I've had, and because they are so women's health related, I just think it's a bit sad, because I know I'm not the only one that's gone through it, and a lot of these girls probably, they go, what the hell's happening with my body? And then they'll just stop sport. And I'm really lucky to have had such a great support system around me, with my mum and my dad, and then just like people who I guess are quite like forward thinking, and just not don't take no for an answer. Because I think if when I rang the GP, and they said this is just the way it is for girls, like, I just think a lot of people would be like, oh right, okay. And then it's because you're supposed to trust GPs. So, but I'm still very much on the journey, and hopefully one day we'll have it all figured out, but it's still a learning process. Unfortunately, I don't have all the answers yet.
I mean, the process and the journey is basically the only thing that you can guarantee and have some control over, and it is 99% of any outcome or destination. Yeah, you can never count on the destination or know it's there. So I guess that is all you can do. But yeah, I think you make such a great point there. Having had the levels of success you had, knowing that you're such a great athlete, I would imagine gave you the motivation to keep pushing through and gave people around you the motivation to keep advocating
Mm.
for you as well. Whereas potentially loads of other women and girls may encounter similar issues, but if running wasn't originally something they're particularly strong at, they might just kind of
Yeah,
let it
exactly.
slip away.
And I think, like, also it's so important to focus on your own journey, because when I was going through all these problems, like in 2021, my best friend actually came second in the Olympics. And so I was sat at home on the sofa, and I was watching her, and I was thinking, it was only like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever, we were like in Portugal together on training camp, and we were running together, and now she's doing this. And I was kind of sat there, and obviously I was crying with happiness, but also I was a little bit sad for myself, because I thought that would be me too, and it's not. And then very quickly, I spoke to one of my coaches now, Jenny Meadows, and she was just like, everyone is on their own journey. She didn't do it until she was, you know, later later on in her career. And then I speak to Georgia Bell, like we went for lunch the other day and we were speaking a bit about it. And she's done it when she's 30. And I think it's just so important to remember that everyone does it at different times and not everyone's the same. But it was hard because I was thinking, oh, of course, of all the people in the world, my best friend's gonna done it at 20, well, 19 or whatever. And I was like, oh gosh, but um I still have hope for myself. Like I think you as a yeah, I still feel like I can do it. You've got to believe and I know my potential and yeah, so but everyone's on their own journey. That's what I stick to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's such an important point for life. It never helps to compare to someone else. And yeah, it doesn't really matter when something happens. It's gonna happen when it's gonna happen. And but I can only imagine how difficult that would be, when there's someone so close to home, it makes it hard to sort of distance yourself from the situation and not look back and not have those kind of what ifs. And you mentioned sort of anxiety being something that maybe you struggled with a bit in the past. Is that something that you think sort of played in there? And mentally, how did you kind of keep yourself going and move through kind of a stark reminder like that?
Yeah, I think like with the anxiety, it was just very much like, I'd turn up to a race and I felt like I was shutting off. I could feel my body just tense up. And I just didn't want to be there at all, which racing is obviously the hard is one of the hardest part of the sport, but mentally, not physically. Like racing is just it's a new level. You have to be able to bring yourself up. Um, but what's crazy is like I could go do an amazing session and then I was like last year basically I was really, really fit. I was training with girls and I was thinking, okay, right, I'm going to PB for the first time because I haven't PB'd guys since I was 15. My PB is still from when I was 15. So let's hope that that isn't for much longer. But yeah, and you'll all see it on Instagram. As soon as I break it, it's going to be, I've finally beaten my 15-year-old self. It's going to be the caption, just so you hear it all here first. But yeah. So I was very much in shape to run probably, I'd say, I don't want to big myself up too much, but I would say sub 4:15. This is in 2023. Um, around 4:15, maybe sub. And I was not breaking 4:30. And it was just the most frustrating process. And I tried to do a bit of sports psychology and things like that, but essentially it was down to some of the symptoms that I get with the hypermobility stuff. And that is also such a complicated thing, but um I was basically just like locking up and yeah, it was bad. I think that the anxiety has reduced since coming off the pill, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to be okay now because I can feel the difference day to day in training as well, way less anxiety. So and I'm happier, so I think that'll help. But I think, yeah, I don't know whether it was in my control or out of my control. All I know is I feel better, and I think that the best thing that you can do with if you were struggling with anxiety is just kind of take yourself out of the situation and think it's actually not that deep. It doesn't actually matter. Like racing doesn't actually if you're getting anxiety around a race, just think like this could be the time where it all clicks. And that's kind of the way that I now think about things is like if I'm getting anxious for a training session, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be really, really hard or whatever. I just think, what if this is the training session where I make my breakthrough? And it kind of helps to flip the psychological aspect to it. But I think the main thing for me with reduce my anxiety is coming off the pill, which is crazy, really. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the power of mindset really is quite something. And yeah, it's crazy how much these things can kind of impact, something as seemingly, like, oh, you've got really bendy fingers or something as hypermobility can actually
Yeah.
impact you in every way.
Yeah,
And
because basically with hypermobility stuff, I actually don't fully understand it. So I don't want to like expand too much without, and give the wrong information. But I'm basically on this disorder spectrum, which means I carry this thing called the mast cell gene. And with that mast cell gene, although like obviously one of the symptoms is hypermobility, it is also like things like ADHD and things like that. So that's why kind of I'm predisposed to struggling with those things. I don't fully understand the science behind it. This is just what I've been told. And I think that there is a lot of research being done about it. And hopefully, yeah, I can um get that research and try and implement it into my life. But yeah, and also like obviously I can't stretch and things like that. So um, but yeah, the biggest symptom that I have from all of that, yeah, is mm, like other than like the bendy fingers and like the stuff that's a lot of strength work, is like like that mental side of things and yeah, the symptoms that come along with that. Well, I think that obviously normal non-hypermobile people struggle with that as well. So maybe we all have our own problems, don't we? So, but yeah, that's kind of I just know that it predisposes me to those things.
mm, yeah, it's really
Like,
interesting.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, you go. I'm done.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's really interesting. I think, often when someone's kind of physically able to perform, well above the average, it kind of comes along with the equal amount of sort of either end of the spectrum, kind of on the mental side and in all respects, really. And yeah, I guess it kind of complicates things further when you're not necessarily kind of bang in the middle.
No, definitely. I think like no, it's boring to be normal
Mm.
at the end of the day. So that's what I try and tell myself. And I would say I'm probably, I'm very extroverted. I'm probably one of the more crazy people, but it makes life a bit more fun. Let's say that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can relate to you on that level. So yeah, I'll definitely be agreeing with you there. And so do you also have ADHD then as well?
Yeah, I feel like I don't want to like properly talk about that because like I'm still very much on my own journey with that. But I think when I crack that, so in my head, once I fully understand the hypermobile stuff, my hormones and the ADHD things, I'm saying it here, I'm gonna be a super athlete, you know? If I can crack all of those things that kind of come together and cause me, you know, almost like internal problems that I can't quite, you know, figure out right now, I think I'm gonna run really, really fast because I can do the training and I don't think I'm that injury prone. I think I can train hard. So yeah, once I crack all of that, I'm gonna be running fast. Let's hope.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, watch this space and yeah, for sure. I feel like once you can understand yourself fully, you can sort of adapt things and make things work for you and then, go back to getting the best out of yourself. And I guess a kind of a final note on sort of the hormone side of things, because that's clearly had
Yeah.
a big impact on your journey, in particular with the pill situation. Do you think that any of that came about or has any sort of relationship with you being a runner and having trained as an athlete, or kind of is it independent and happens to have impacted your running?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it has nothing to do with, yeah, like training at a young age or anything like that. I think that it's kind of luck of the draw. I think that I just have, been dealt those set of cards. I do think that it's been mainly caused by the pill and coming off the pill. because a lot of people will have polycystic ovaries. It's just whether you get this PCOS, which is kind of the symptoms that come along with the polycystic ovaries. And then coming off the pill, if you suppress your hormones for so long, it can cause an imbalance. And then that's how I ended up with the PCOS. And I am kind of struggling with that right now, to be honest. Like I am quite insulin resistant right now. So I'm not super, super skinny or light as that, but I'm just not, I'm just making sure I'm fueling because at the end of the day I want to run. Um and we're not, I don't preach any of this running diet culture. I just want to be, I love food. I want to be able to eat my chocolate. But yeah, so I'm trying to cure my insulin sensitivity right now. But yeah, like I don't think running did make me have that. I just think that it's just one of those things that come along with being a woman, and some people will struggle with it, and some people, the lucky people, won't. But I'm hopeful that in the next kind of 10 years or so, there'll be hardly anyone that struggles with it because I mean, I see more and more people talking about it, so I know that there is more research being done into it. So I'm hopeful that my kids, if it is genetic or it is environmental or whatever, I don't think that they will struggle with it, which is good to see.
Yeah, definitely. No, that would be so great. And yeah, there's definitely a lot more conversations going on around kind of women's health and that side of things. And you have a great awareness of sort of your body and what's going on. It sounds like you're kind of your own Sherlock Holmes when it comes to figuring out what's
Yeah,
happening.
I
Um,
know, like it's just, I guess it's just had to be that way because some of the things that happened to me just aren't mainstream. Like it's not like, oh, I need to go to the doctors to get this tablet and this is going to fix me, because that just isn't the way that it has been, unfortunately. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that shows, it's great resilience, great determination going on there, but also, I guess, a level of kind of curiosity and kind of commitment to working out what's going on. And maybe for, other female athletes who are maybe having, various things where they're like, do you know what, I just don't feel like this is right. Have you got kind of any maybe tips in terms of how you kind of become so in tune with your body and, start that process of thinking, okay, maybe it's this, maybe it's that?
Yeah, I think like I think you've got to trust your gut. Like obviously we can all be hypochondriacs as well. But I also think that most of the time, if you feel like there is something wrong, there probably is. I'm massive now on kind of, I go to see a naturopath who um, gives me like teas and like helps to advise me on what supplements to take, because I just think that that is the better route to go down. But I also just think there's no harm in going to your doctor, even though what I've just said about the GP saying this is how it is for girls. I still think like if you can try and get blood tests to measure your hormone levels, go get them done. Because if you, most likely, if you are, you know, feeling overly tired, or you're struggling mentally or whatever, there is probably some kind of imbalance going on in your body. So I would say, yeah, blood tests really good. And if you can go see a naturopath, go see one, because I just think that it there's no better way to kind of cure your body than through a more natural approach. Obviously, we do need medications and things like that. Um, but something as simple as taking a vitamin um could be a game changer for someone. So yeah, they're probably my two things that I I would do if you're struggling.
That's interesting to hear. And yeah, it's great that you've found something that's kind of working well for you and with sort of what you want to see from your body. And obviously
Yeah.
kind of the going through puberty situation was, I guess, a bit of a challenge for you. And you said you're still on that journey, but can you sort of talk us through what you're currently at in terms, or where you're currently at in terms of, how you feel, how much further do you think you've got to go on the journey? And Yeah.
Yeah, so I came off the pill June 2024, so this year. And I immediately got two I've had like two periods, and they were both very, very consistent. And then I started to feel when I started training again, um, I started to feel really inflamed and I knew something wasn't quite right. And so I don't know whether it was the added stress of training again, because that can affect your cycle or what. But then I started to gain a little bit of weight again, not quite as bad as January 2021, but just a little bit of weight. And yeah, so now I'm kind of just trying to rebalance all of that. And I think my body's just getting used to my natural hormones because they have been suppressed for so long. So I wouldn't go as far to say that I'm like really struggling with the PCOS symptoms, but I do think there is an element of them there. But I also think that a lot of women at some point their hormones will be not quite balanced due to stress, due to, external factors that can affect you internally. And I don't quite know whether it's from training or I don't know whether it's from um my body getting used to that again. So we'll see, but I'm feeling good. I feel like my body is becoming less inflamed. I'm starting to train better. So it is all looking up. And I know that I'm eating well, I'm eating healthy. So I'm I just am kind of trying to just trust the process that if I keep doing the right things, take the vitamins that my naturopath told me to take, keep fueling correctly, and yeah, just training, but almost not training too hard. So I'm not, you know, really, really stressing myself physically. Although that's kind of a lie because this training camp has so hard. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I will probably do some kind of thing on Instagram when I figure some stuff out. But yeah, but I'm happy. I think that's the main thing. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, no, that's so great to hear. And it's great that you've kind of found that happiness and found that enjoyment. And in that respect, what allowed you to re-find your love of running?
I think like stripping it back to, okay, this is something I enjoy. I know that I can be good at it, but it might take a bit of time. And also looking at it as like I want to be fit and I want to be healthy. And you know, I'm so inspired by my friends and the people around me that I was like, why don't I do this? And then when I graduated university last year, I really was like, right, you know what, I really want to make another GB team. That's gonna be my first aim. So September 2020, I was no, not 2020, gosh, thank God. 2023. I started, training consistently. I was based in Loughborough at the time, um, and was jumping in sessions, and I was just enjoying it, like um, enjoying the kind of the process of getting good again. And then after 8 weeks consistency for kind of the most consistent 8 weeks I'd probably done in years. Um, I went on training camp as well with my friends and to Font Remo, and then I made a GB team. And I thought, oh my gosh, like finally, like this is the end of my problems. Like, yes, it wasn't. But I was saying before this podcast, that the thing is something's always gonna like come up, and you've just got to kind of take the learning from it because even though I got injured this year, now I have orthotics and I now have strengthened my calves and I'm now in a place that, okay, the next time I go and I do a period of intensity, because I hadn't really done proper track training in a while and I did the April training camp in South Africa. I was running in spikes quite a lot and my calves just got so tight and they weren't really used to it. And then I ended up with a grade 1 stress response in my shin. So, but now I've got the learning. So now I'm like, okay, well, you have to build spikes in and yeah. So it's just part of the process. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, things are always going to come along in life, and the only thing you can control is what you do about them. And it sounds like you are absolutely on it when it comes to that side of things. And yeah, in that respect, how do you deal with kind of being injured? You've had a lot of setbacks. At this point, I think a lot of people would probably start to lose the will to live, but you've kind of managed to keep yourself turning up, coming back for more, and staying overall kind of focused on that long term.
Yeah, I think it's because maybe I'm delusional, but I do believe that in some, whether that be, the pinnacle of the sport, the Olympics, or, just even just going to Eurocross again, I just think that I will always be involved in the sport and I want to be always training and yeah, I just don't see myself not doing it. So that I think that's the thing that always like I'm never not gonna train. So and because I have been so privileged in the last kind of year and a half since graduating university that I've been able to go, okay, well, I've got this spare time on the side of the other things that I've been doing. I may as well put my energy into that. So I guess that I have been privileged in that sense that some people, they graduate university and it's like they have the potential to be a good runner, but you graduate university at are you 21, 22, and if you're not financially able to carry on doing whatever to support your athletics career, you have to go get a job. So I've been looking in that sense that I've found things that can help kind of finance me while still almost being like a professional athlete, like living like a professional athlete and coming on these camps so I can still make progressions which I'd hoped would have come out on the track this year, but they haven't. But it's fine. We're over that now. Next year, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Oh, I really hope so. I hope so. I have a good feeling for you.
Thank
This coming
you.
2025, this can be your one. It'll be a nice 10 years from
Yeah.
15 as well. So, um, that's
Oh
kind
my
of
gosh, that can
depressing,
go in
but
the caption.
yeah.
That can go in the caption.
No, but I think it's interesting you use the word privileged. And I mean, for sure, it is great that you recognize kind of the position you're in terms of being able to do what you love. But I think at the same time, you kind of don't give yourself enough credit in that, you've clearly built up a following on Instagram. You're on it in terms of kind of marketing what you need to market. You've got yourself a means of getting the finance you need to do what you want. And I think that's very admirable. So do you want to sort of walk us through kind of what you've been doing on the side then to keep, running something you can do?
Yeah, so I guess I have been modeling for a couple of years now, and it's good. Like, I'm part of Forte, which is a sports agency, and they like get me jobs every now and again. And modeling, if I'm honest, does pay well. So I've done that. I will say I have done my fair share of like waitressing and things like that, but like kind of in the last year and a half, it's been mainly modeling. And then I think it was just like maybe like a week prior to Euro trials last year, I kind of had a gut feeling that I was going to make the team. And I was speaking to some people in my life at the time, and they were like, "Oh, you should post on social media. Like you'd be really good at it." And I kind of just was like, okay, right, let's post a reel. Let's post me getting my GB kit and let's see if it's well received. And then I think like I was like, why not? So anyway, started posting, did a couple of posts around Eurocross, and I had a couple that just did really well. And then I just got into the routine of it. I went to South Africa and I just started sharing little parts of my journey. And I was really consistent, to be fair. I think if anybody wants to get into it, I think if you're I haven't been consistent recently, guys. I'm sorry, but I was at that point and I was posting, a good four re reels a week or so. And yeah, it just kind of built up quite quickly. And then on the back of that, I then had the opportunity to do you get to do like a couple of like sponsored posts, or you get to do some like paid stories. And yeah, I guess the way you said like marketing yourself, I feel like, and I'm still learning about it because I've only been really doing it since like maybe for a year now, less than a year. But I think building an image around yourself, if you're not well, even if you are a top athlete, but I think it's a smart thing to do because it gives you the opportunities to, you know, earn money, or, look quite desirable towards certain brands, but also like share your journey. And then hopefully, if I do whatever I end up doing in the future, some people may have come along on the journey and they may have learned something. And I think as I go on, I would absolutely love to become um more vocal in what's happened to me. It's just quite hard to kind of sometimes talk about it. I mean, we've been talking about doing a podcast now for like so long. But like I'm just like I almost like wanted to have the answer to like all the problems before I kind of came on. But if I'm being honest, I don't have the answer, and I don't know if I ever will have the answer. It's just still learning. So yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, social media and modeling have allowed me to kind of do this the last year and a half. And yeah, it's been good. It's hopefully I can carry on doing it. I'm going to America um in January. Um and I'm gonna document that, I think. And yeah, that's that really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I think it is, it takes a lot more effort and work than I think sometimes people realize in terms of things like social media, or, even modeling can seem quite glamorous from the outside, but it takes work from your end. And yeah, I think as well, you talk about kind of sharing that story, sharing that journey, and you don't necessarily have the answers when you start. You don't know how it's going to work out, and you've got to put yourself out there, and you've got to be vulnerable, and you've got to be kind of, open to what comes back, and that also takes a lot of courage. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it definitely is admirable. And yeah, it's something that I think in the current world we live in, being able to market yourself, especially when you're kind of in the world of sport, it is important if you want these kind of opportunities. And I think a lot of athletes are increasingly looking to kind of get into that area. And I mean, modeling, you do need a certain look, and that might not be for everyone, but everyone can certainly sort of share their story, or capitalize on the things that they do have. For you, what would you say are kind of some of the things, looking back on the journey you've taken in terms of kind of sharing your story on social media, and to some extent as well with the modeling, that maybe you wish you'd known when you started out?
Um, I think I've had such a positive experience with it all. I think that if you do start posting online, and I'm in no way like, I know you referred like as an influencer. I won't go that far. I think I do have a following, and I really, really appreciate everyone that follows me because it gives me a bit of a purpose, which is great. But I think that if you post on social media, unfortunately, in the world that we live in, you're gonna get some negative comments. You're gonna get some weird comments. When I was at Eurocross last year, I had comments about my weight, which wasn't very nice. And you also get, as a woman on social media, you do get a lot of, I don't know how to word this in a tasteful way. But I think that says it all. You do get kind of some,
Interesting men.
yes, some rather weird things in your DMs, and I just ignore them. But I think if you are um kind of gonna start posting on social media, I would be aware of that. In terms of modeling, I think that it's helped me gain confidence, and I think that kind of modeling background before posting on social media helped me almost like get an eye for it in a way, because I kind of would be on campaigns and I would see how things would kind of like the storyline of things, or like, how to pose. And I guess Instagram is rather posy. So I do think they go hand in hand. So I think it probably made it easier. But yeah, like looking back, it's been fairly positive, I would say. Like it's not been, I don't have any horrible stories. Just probably a pre-warning of the DMs.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, that is something that kind of you have to deal with, especially if you are a female and you are posting, on social media, especially, I guess sometimes, running or sportswear outfits can be a bit more minimal. And, how do you
Yeah.
feel in terms of kind of when you post something that maybe shows a bit more body, like how does that sit with you? And
Yeah, I guess like it's a weird one because I'm choosing to post that, and I know that when I post that, that there are going to be those people in my DMs, and I just because I ignore it, I kind of block it out. Um, but I just think that if you feel good, post it. And I guess maybe when it started to become a little bit more pressurizing in the last couple of, I would say maybe mid this year when I started to realize, oh gosh, and I started to take some reels and I used to not really like analyze the way that I looked and I used to think, oh gosh, I don't look very good. And then I started to realize that, when your friend would show you a picture and they'd be like, oh, is this okay? Or like, oh, I don't look very good on that. And you just think, but they look great. You look absolutely fine. Everyone always overanalyzes themselves more. So I actually just think if you, well, yeah, post things that you like, but also just like I just don't think I deep it that much anymore. So if I get, I am always asking for photos. Like I have no shame now. I'll just be whipping my phone out and I'm like, guys, can you take a picture of me? And I don't care if I've got makeup on. I don't get me wrong, I'm probably not going to post a really bad photo of myself because that's just human nature. But I just think I'm posting my life. Like it's sometimes I'll be glam, sometimes I won't, and I'm probably just going to post any content I get really. So I just don't really deep social media that much anymore. But I think it's a process and you kind of just get used to it in a way. But I don't think anything unless you stopped posing and didn't post anything at all, I don't think you're not going to get the people in your DMs. And I don't think reacting to them it does any good either. So I just ignore it basically.
yeah, no, that
Because I'm
sounds
not
like
gonna not post I'm not gonna not post in a nice, Nike Pro set. Like I want to show that off. Like if I've got a nice outfit on, I'm gonna post it.
yeah, use the platform for what it was intended
Yeah.
for. And yeah, I think that's a lovely perspective to have on it. And yeah, that kind of all makes sense. And yeah, it's definitely something that I think other people maybe in a similar position could sort of learn from or consider really. And I suppose to sort of bring it back to kind of the running side of things, obviously you
Yeah.
mentioned the next stop being kind of America and you're off to Duke. Do you want to talk us
Yeah.
through how that came about and
Yeah. I guess like I was way too young to go to America when I was 18, post sixth form. And then my mum would always say, oh, like, would you like to do it? And I always kind of thought, I'm not sure. But I remember when I was in the Bahamas, not to refer back to the Bahamas, but there was some American coaches from schools, and there was the Duke coach, and I knew Duke was very academic, and yeah, it just stuck in my head. So then I just decided this summer when I started thinking about it, I reached out to the coach and we had a phone call and it kind of just went from there. Um, the reason I wanted to do it is because this last year and a half was kind of supposed to be a bit of a gap year. Um, Obviously I have been kind of working and things like that, with the socials and the modeling and things. But so I wanted to get a master's. I wanted to experience it as well because I think at the level that I'm running, it's quite suited to go do that for a year. So yeah, so I start um in January. I'm there for a year at the moment because I'm going in quite late, so I don't have loads of eligibility. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It is really sad though, because I was doing my hill session today and I was like, oh, I'm not going to be with the girls, because I have such a lovely training group. So I'm not like wanting to, like, I definitely want to like come back, even though my coach is like, you might not be coming back. He's like keeps winding me up that I'm gonna go find a boyfriend or something like that, an American boyfriend. And I'm like, oh, well, we'll see about that. But yeah, so I'm gonna go do that. So that's exciting. Hopefully I can arrive there in decent fitness. So I can do some indoors and things like that. But again, yeah, just gonna take each day as it comes. The girls on the team seem lovely, the Duke girls. So yeah, I'm looking forward to meet new people, experience America, experience the NCAA system. Um, yeah, I think it'll be great.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it'd be really cool. And yeah, I think they've always got a lot of like additional support out in the States as well. So yeah, I guess you can always, I don't know, discuss some of the things you've kind of thought about over the years with them potentially out there. I don't know. And what
Yeah.
masters are you doing?
So I'm going to do liberal studies. So
Mhm.
basically, it's an interdisciplinary degree, so you kind of choose the direction that you want to go in. But I did my undergraduate in business management at Uni of Leeds, so I'm going to kind of layer that with maybe some politics, which and maybe learn about American politics and kind of see what's going on with all of that. Um, but yeah, that's what I'm doing. So
Oh, no, that's really cool. And yeah, of course, I guess, the other thing is you have moved around quite a lot in terms of training groups and, your current training group that is M11 with kind of Georgia Bell and Keely Hodgkinson, who's kind of your best friend as well. So yeah, do you want to kind of give a reflection
yeah,
in terms
so
of,
me and Keely have been like best mates since we were like, gosh, testing me. She probably knows. Like 11. So we've been best mates for like over 10 years. And we always used to go on training camps together. So we'd go to Portugal when we were younger and things like that. And then obviously over the years that's changed into South Africa. So I started going on camp with her and Trevor and Jenny. And it was quite small at the time, but now it's turned into M11 and we have all these amazing girls in the group. But yeah, initially I was just going on camps with them. So um and then I officially joined, even though I seem like I've been training with them a while. I actually only officially joined the group in April. Um and now I'm leaving. But I'm coming back. Trevor, if you're listening to this, I am coming back. Like, I don't care what you say about me getting an American boyfriend. I'm coming back.
she's coming back? You heard her. Uh,
Yeah, no, it is such an amazing thing being part of such a great group. It's just like I said earlier, you have to remind yourself who you're training with sometimes. Um, but also because the girls are so lovely, like we have such a real positive environment of training. Everyone's really supportive. And I think sometimes that can be rare well, from my experience, that can be rare in a girls group. Obviously we do have some boys now, but in a girls group, and I don't, girls, come on, we need to start being more supportive. Like, I just think, like, why can't we all be friends? We need to cut all this bitchiness out and we just need to like all lift each other up. So I don't know why there is that culture sometimes, but not in this group, not in M11, and that's really, really lovely. And from the sounds of it, not in the group that I'm moving to in January as well. Because I'm very much like I want to be best friends with all the girls. I just think sometimes it doesn't end up that way, and it's sad, really.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, bitch free is the way to go. And yeah, there definitely
Yeah.
can be a bit, I think sometimes too many type A girls, it can become a bit of the Hunger Games kind of on the mental side, really. And that,
That's a good way to put it. I like that.
yeah, very, very like seemingly fine Hunger Games, but still going on.
Yeah,
Okay, and
literally.
some kind of questions to like close off with now. What is the number one biggest thing that you've taken from your running experience so far?
Oh, I would say that probably what I said earlier is that everyone's on their own journey
Mm.
and that there's no like timeline that you need to be doing anything. Like focus on yourself, stay in your lane, like excuse the pun. And yeah, just like don't put too much pressure on it and just yeah, focus on yourself. It's the best way.
Yeah, definitely. That is very, very good advice there. And for you, what do you think is the best thing to do when you kind of encounter a challenge or a setback or continuous challenges and setbacks in running?
Um, oh, I'm still figuring this out, guys, because it is hard. But I would say, I think always when you, if you step back from the situation and know that like running's only just one part of your life, and I think it's only one source of happiness, like it can definitely does make me happy and it makes everyone happy when running's going well, it's good, but you need to have like other things that like make you happy or other focuses. And that's why I think I'll really thrive going to America and doing a master's degree because you've got something else to focus on. And that's why I think like modeling and social media, it's another thing to focus on. Or like, I just think that, having more layers to yourself as a human being, like a balance, it's the balance. The balance is key.
Yeah, so, so true. Balance is everything. And yeah, you can never get enough variety and diversity in life, really.
Yeah.
And for you, has there been a meme or reel that's resonated with you recently?
Oh, I'm gonna say this is the first one that comes to my head, but and I haven't done it yet, so I probably should do it. The hashtag women in male fields. I love that trend when I'm seeing it. And I think it was like Lena or Lavia Nielsen that posted, and it was like they were like running and they were like saying like when a man says, "Oh, I think I can beat you," and then it's like, "But you're an elite athlete." Hashtag. I thought that was funny. But yeah, I find that quite it's just a funny one, isn't it? And especially being an athlete and the amount of um you go on a night out or you go in any kind of social situation with non-athletes and they're like, "Oh, you're an athlete, can I race you?" And you're like, "Oh, here we go." So I found that one funny.
Yeah, no, I love that. Okay, and if you had a magic power, like a superpower, what would you choose and why?
Oh gosh. It's a it's a cliche question, but it's actually hard to answer that one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, other than fix all my problems, I would probably say, oh my goodness, I don't want to be like cliche and be like, be invisible,
I
but
mean, it
I'd
was a
quite like to
cliche
be.
question, so
Yeah, maybe just like be invisible so I could just kind of go and do whatever I want. And also like you could probably find out quite good secrets, like be in some rooms that you're not really supposed to be in, be quite fun. But I would hate to like because I'd hate to like know what everyone was saying about me. So I wouldn't do it for those reasons because I just think like people are gonna say stuff anyway. But I just mean like, you could probably learn some quite good information. And maybe I might even learn information about the problems I've had. I could like sneak myself into some kind of top rooms and find out, you know, what the best thing it is to like sort whatever out. You never know.
yeah, unleashing detective level 100 or
Yeah,
whatever.
here we go. Sherlock Holmes over here.
Yeah, taking it to the real next level. Okay, and for you, what's your favorite session?
Oh, what is my favorite session? I've got a couple. I do like doing sets of 300s. So like off short recovery. So like two sets of eight 300s off of like 45 seconds recovery and running them in like at like 3K pace. So like sessions that you're like pretty chilled at, but it's still, yeah, I like that. And then I love a good grass session. Like, even though I'm not based in Loughborough anymore, I do love Brock. If you know Brock, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just the best cricket pitch in the world. So any session on there, when it's actually quite sunny, I love that. Big
Yeah.
up Brock.
Do you know, I will agree with you there that is if anyone doesn't know it, it's a cricket pitch. It's not very big, but I don't know what the grass is made of, but it's fast.
It's good.
Yeah.
I think they spend so much money on that grass. Like I think I heard it was like, why do I feel like saying like £1 million or something?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like they definitely spend a lot of money to maintain that grass.
Oh yeah, I don't think Loughborough's selling themselves short when it comes to spending on their sports facilities. I'll give them that.
No, not at all.
Oh, okay. Well, no, thank you so much for coming on. You know, thanks for sharing your story or, you know, your journey that you're still on as well. And yeah, it's been great hearing about everything. And hopefully this coming year or, you know, within the next few years, your big breakthrough will come.
I really hope so. I know I've talked a lot, so I'm gonna probably just go nap now after that.
I mean, it's a
I'm flying
podcast.
home today. Yeah, true, true. So I in my training group, last thing I'll say, in my training group, me and my friend Sky, we got the joint award for biggest chatterbox. So I feel like that summarizes it. And we can probably leave it there.
Okay. Podcast ending. No, thanks so much. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, be sure to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. This really helps to get the content out there. And I want to make this podcast the best possible for you. So go follow Fitter, Faster, Happier on Instagram. That's Fitter, Faster, Happier to leave your questions, comments, and feedback, and for updates and guest requests. All the best for the week ahead, guys. Run happy, live happy, be happy.